welcome back. All right, so y'all, I got this new topic I've been dying to chat with you about. So it's all about, this thought about being authentic at work. And so what kind of triggered it is that I just recently came back from a conference not too long ago, Money 2020, which is like the biggest conference that fintech folks kind of go to every year in Las Vegas. And this year I happened to be a part of a cohort called Amplify, which is kind of a group of individuals that Money 2020 kind of puts together to promote like people of color. And then they have kind of a sister org called Rise, which is for women. So I got into this Amplify cohort and it was really great. They put on a lot of like specific sessions for us to try and help us, essentially level up, meet each other, kind of learn ways to navigate corporate America and all of those types of things. But throughout my time there in Vegas, there's this comment that kind of kept coming up. It's taken a minute, how do I phrase this? It was like a thing that was being said a lot a few years ago. So it's all about like being authentic, authenticity. And so it kind of got brought up again about like, don't worry about all the other stuff, be yourself. And it's problematic, bro. Like real talk. I don't know about you, but like authenticity for me doesn't quite work that same way. And I want to say for most women of color specifically, for men of color, I think it's a little bit different because I think they can get away being more authentic and it not blowing back on them. But for women of color, we have a lot of preconceived notions of how we should be. And I will state this, that like to me, it's all structure anchored in white supremacy. So let me explain more. So like the way that I tend to talk about it is that like, yeah, you can be authentic and ideally you should be authentic because there's a whole lot of negative things, with stress and the personality dissonance and all of this stuff that like if you're not authentic in an area of your life, particularly one that you spend so much waking hours, so much thought in, that it can just lead to like negative health problems, like mental health and physical health problems. Do some research, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of call it like the authenticity disclaimer. And I say that because I'm not saying don't be authentic, but know what you're getting into when you decide to do that. And also know that it's not like a all or nothing thing. Like I feel like maybe not people, but like the perception is that like I'm either authentic or I'm not. And if I'm not authentic, then I'm fake or I'm trying to play into this, blah, blah, blah. Like for us, it doesn't really work that way. Like I really want to say, choose your moments. Anyway, I'm kind of jumping ahead. Okay, hold on one second. So essentially, I wrote a blog post about this on Medium that kind of gives you the high level. And I wanted to talk a little bit deeper here because we know each other like that. To get into the real nitty gritty of like really what I meant in the post. So to start off, I say something to the effect of, make sure the organization actually supports it. And like, this is like step 0 almost before you join the company to really understand how do they deal with people? How do they interact with people, promote people, give feedback on people that are different from themselves? And that means a lot of things. It can be like the things that most people think of in terms of gender and race, age, all of those types of things, ethnicity, but also what people don't actively call out is like work styles, communication techniques, all of those things, like that matters. And if they can't handle something different, then one, you have to determine whether you're okay with that. If you can adapt to the culture that exists, is that a place for you to succeed? But two, then you'll have to also like play in the additional level of like where your authenticity sits within that. And so like what I mean by that is that like I happen to have been worked in a very diverse So what I mean by that is that like I happen to have the opportunity to work like in a really diverse organization on all of the different metrics: age, race, gender, sexual orientation, all the things, like happen to be very diverse. It was also inclusive because everyone was kind of at the table. It was a small organization. It was definitely very equitable. But the reason I always say DEIB is because that belonging piece is really key for me. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The belonging piece to me is like really what matters in the sense of having someone feel like they can be successful in that organization, right? And this was the organization that really clued me into that. Before I was like, yeah, DEI is great, or DIE, or whatever. But that belonging piece, I didn't feel like I belonged because I was the only one that was different from that and everyone in that organization. And to generalize it, what I mean by different is that everyone came from the same background. They all came, I would say, from like the specific organization that teaches you how to work, communicate, all the things in a certain way, and I didn't. So I was literally like, felt like the odd person out. How I communicated about a product roadmap, they were like, I don't understand. And I'm like, I don't know how else to explain it, right? Because I came from my experience had been in a very more, more traditional like software development, product management experience. And so like, I was able to kind of apply things I had learned over multiple organizations. And this was not that. These were not, super startup tech people. And so we were literally saying the same words with different definitions. And like I mentioned, that kind of clued me into the importance of belonging. But organization is really set up for it. If it's not set up for handling people's differences in any type of way, then they're probably more than likely not going to be able to like really handle any type of additional authenticity that you bring. And authenticity means hairstyles, it means vernacular, it means all the things. Like one of the ways that I tend to show up really authentically in work is in my vocabulary, right? So I will throw out AAVE when it just happens. Like I don't even think about it anymore. It just rolls off the tongue. I'll be telling clients, yeah, go ham. Or, like, hold up, sis, like any of those things, just because like that's one of the things that I just grown to remove, that barrier or that like professional speak or whatever you kind of want to call it, that code switchingness. And so now it just is what it is. I talk the same way to my mom as I do to elders, to my friends, to work folks. Like it's going to be the same communication style for everyone. There's of course, you tailor certain things based on your audience, but for the like 99% of the time, like I'm gonna say the same thing regardless, right? Anyway, I digress. So determine if the organization is set up for it. And if it's not, determine what level of authenticity then you then want to bring to the organization. So like I had mentioned, like it's not an all or nothing. It's not a switch. You're either authentic or you're not, but like you can choose the moments or the elements or the levels that you want to become authentic in, and then just kind of tease it out. See how people react to it. See if they notice at all. Some may notice and not say anything. Some people may say something. Any type of feedback, again, whether it's verbal, non-verbal, like take that in and then decide what to do with that. And that way you can at least measure whether like, okay, can we move things in the right direction or not? And if it's not, if you find that you gave 10% of your authenticity and like they're not having it, then I won't say no harm, no foul, but you have limited the exposure of any negative kind of responses. I also kind of write in my blog that if it's not a great place, like don't take on the emotional labor to try and make it, because like it's not your job, quite frankly. It's fucking harder than you would expect. I've definitely tried to think like, oh, I can save this company. I have a problem with that, but let's not talk about that. I definitely have been there where it's like, maybe I can change this organization of couple hundred folks and make it more diverse, make it more inclusive, make it more blah, blah, blah. Like I mentioned, it's not your job as a PM or whatever your role happens to be, unless it happens to be HR and all about culture, it's going to drain you. And I say that just as like the older sister you didn't ask for. That's just truth. Yeah. Okay. Second, I call out, be ready for the fallout. Like if you decide to go on this path of like being fully authentic or even like staging it up, realize that, people ain't gonna like it, particularly if you're changing something that they're used to. If they've always expected you because you have been like the yes person in the company and now you're not pushing back, but like you're questioning a lot more, you're not gonna like it overall, right? Because you're essentially changing the relationship dynamics that you've agreed to. A lot of people aren't good with change, and definitely a lot of people aren't great with being challenged. Take that into account. If you're at a place in your career or you're at a place within that organization where like if things go sideways, you're gonna be okay, then like great. But if you are not, and you cannot take that risk, again, just take it as like another input of like how much should you toggle on or off authenticity. And I'll also pause here and say, like, I'm not saying be inauthentic and, you know, become a Stepford wife, husband person-ish. These are all the choices. These are all the micro decisions that you're going to have to make and that like you will have to live with. I'm not saying there's a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this. I'm just trying to give you all of the deets, all the tea on what you can expect, because I've definitely worked through a couple of situations where my authenticity damn near cost me my sanity. Like, it just wasn't a place that accepted it. The people weren't happy with it. They didn't see the value in it. And I eventually had to leave. In multiple cases, I had to leave because I couldn't do it anymore, right? Like, I couldn't pretend not to be who I was. I was at that point in my life where I wasn't gonna pretend, and they just didn't want the me. So I was able to leave, but not everyone is able to be like, fuck y'all today. And then and then some more specifically, I call out, like, be ready for people to like micromanage you, to gaslight you, to straight up lie on your behavior, on your identity, on your personality, all those things, because I legit happened to me. I had this one coworker who like lied on me in a performance review. So much so that like I knew exactly who it was based on the comments that they left in my like peer performance review. And it became a big thing because I had to have the conversation with my boss, being like, this is not true, this is not the situation. And it all came down to me not smiling enough in meetings with this person. And if you can, like, y'all, like, first of all, we're not going to get into the whole, like, you know, male smile, whatever. To be honest, it was a white woman who it all came down to, like, oh, they don't feel like you're friendly enough. And I was like, what the fuck does that matter? We're not friends outside of work. I'm doing my job. And so if I'm like intently listening to you, yeah, I'm not like plastered a Disney smile on my face, because I'm listening to you and I'm engaging and doing my job. So one has nothing to do with the other. But anyway, my authentic face or interactions in meetings apparently didn't sit well with her, and therefore she wanted to make some shit up. Whether it was intentional or not, I cannot speak to her motivations. But what happened was a pure and like bold-faced fucking lie that caused a lot of issues. And luckily I had a great manager at the time that was like, this doesn't seem right. My manager, also a white female, had a conversation with this person who I mentioned, and we all then had a conversation together where we cleared it up, and it was like outed that it wasn't true. And then I had to move forward and, you know, continue to work with her, because that's what life is like. So again, my real life explanation of being like, some people are not going to like who your authentic self is. Sometimes they're going to want to have you smile at them constantly because that makes them feel better for whatever reason that they don't like you or intimidated or whatever the case. Just be ready for it. Like, because, you know, if that situation could have gone left and could have cost you my job. But luckily it didn't, at least in that instance. Okay. And then I also call out, take a break when needed. So what I kind of mean by this is I kind of view being authenticity as being externally vulnerable, because you're essentially giving your full self to everyone. and that takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot to be constantly vulnerable and being like, this is who I am, you know, take it or leave it to a certain extent, but exposing who you are without those guards in place, particularly as like women of color. Sometimes you need a break, and sometimes you're just gonna like, I need to chill, step back, and just like not say shit that I would normally say in this instance. Just like not. It's just like sometimes you need a break, and it's okay. Don't feel guilty about it. Again, don't think that like, oh, now I'm being a fake person or fake this or that. Like, it has nothing to do with that. You can't be in like fight mode all the time. There are times where you need a break, and it's okay. So like, give yourself that grace a bit. But I also want to make sure it's clear that like, when you find that right place, when you find those right group of people, when you're able to just show up to work without thinking of how you have to show up to work, y'all. Yo, that feeling is I'm like, I can't underscore how important that feeling is, and how freeing and light, and like all you get to do is just focus on the job and what's required of you. There's nothing like it. I've had that situation a couple of times in my career. One time it started that way and then transitioned to a negative experience. But the joy, like I said, there is nothing like it. And I want to be like, is this what white people feel like when they go to work? When they enter the world, they just like, they can just exist and they can just be, and people like them for that. And also it's not about people liking, like I'm not being authentic so people will like me, but like I'm not gonna lie and be like, it makes it easier. It makes it easier when either there's a positive response or there's a neutral response, right? But when there's negative responses, which we tend to get, that's when it becomes harder to just be vulnerable, be yourself, because like, again, we already deal with, you already know this, I mean, like I'm speaking to the choir, right? These microaggressions every day, the like straight up aggressive aggressions every day. Like sometimes you don't want to add another thing to your plate for someone to come at you with, which is why the three things I mentioned before about like having the right space, the right set of people, maybe being in that place in your career, potentially where you're just like, fuck it. If you're not ready for all this, cool, I will find the place that is. And I'm optimistic. I'm a realist, but like I'm optimistic enough to know that that place does exist. Because I definitely found, like I said, I found a couple of places over time where they do. And when you are like committed or participating in this like authenticity world, this framework, this lifestyle, I guess, we together collectively are making it or normalizing it, right? For other women of color, for other Black women, to do that, and they don't have to go through those same, you know, brick walls or climb them like the way that we did, you know what I mean? So, which is why like things like my pink, you can't see it right now. I mean, you can see kind of like, you see a little bit right, but like my pink hair, I started dyeing my hair a couple of years ago, and ever since I wanted to make sure that like my headshots, any headshots that I had my natural hair, and now had my colored hair, pink hair and all. So it's accepted. People are not surprised when they see me, you know, in person or on a Zoom call, that yeah, I am a head of product, a VP of product, an entrepreneur, all the things, and I have pink curly hair, and that's who I am. Suck it. I'm gonna stop here. There's another topic on that's kind of connected, that's on my mind, and I'm thinking it's gonna be the next video that you'll probably see me in the exact same fit, because I'm gonna take it right next. But it's all about understanding the assignment, and I'll tell you more what that means later. All right, thank you all for listening. As general as normal, please put comments down below what you like, what you didn't like. Again, a true product manager here, that I want to understand what works and what doesn't, what y'all like to hear more from me. I'm always here to tell you the truth, like my version of the truth anyway, from my experience. All right, until next time, bye.